tardes, good evening, everybody, and buenas tardes, Helena.
Buenas tardes. Hello, everyone.
This is the 14th episode of LivTalks, the most fun, entertaining, and educational web series out there. That's what we've called it. We've been to Rome, we've been to Paris, we've been to Venice, we've been to Rome back, we've been to Milan, we've been to Barcelona, Rome back, and in Sorrento. And now we cannot but be again in Barcelona. And you have chosen such a beautiful topic to talk about Picasso. Helena, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose the topic, and we'll dive right into it.
Okay, I'm from Barcelona originally, but I moved to London when I was 19. I spent then nearly 12 years. I studied, I have a BA in history, a master's in contemporary theory. I started working as a tour guide, educational tour guide, when I was living in London, in France and Spain. And then I moved to Paris 12 years after. I lived there, continued my work as a tour guide. And when I came back to Barcelona, that was in 2013, I started working as well as a local guide. So I combined this activity with also teaching as well in a fine arts international school.
So I have to say there is a hint British accent in your English.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not conscious about it. So I don't know. Some people say that, but I guess it's somewhere there.
All right, listen up. Let's dive right into the topic. Okay. I'll show the screen again, and we'll give you the stage for everything. So, very good. Sorry. Picasso, the man behind the arts in Barcelona. When I read this title,
yeah,
I was like, that's right. I mean, at some point, Picasso did come and live in Barcelona, but when you think Picasso, you think Malaga, you think Paris. But there is also an enormous amount of influence that Picasso gave and received from Barcelona. So let's dive into it. Here's the first picture you chose.
Yeah. I chose this picture to talk about how Picasso was as a child. There's quite a funny anecdote. When he was born on the 25th of October, 1881, he was the first child of the family, Picasso family, who was a middle-class family, and he couldn't breathe. So basically, his uncle, who was actually a doctor, he was present at the family house. He actually decided to use this rather unmodern, or for our eyes, very unusual way to wake up the baby, just by blowing some cigar smoke on his face. And there Picasso actually started crying. So let's say that the smoke of a cigar saved the life of Picasso.
So Picasso's the taller boy on the left-hand side?
Yes, the taller boy on the left. He's portrayed with his younger sister, 3 years younger. Yes, Lola. And the funny thing is that they were actually meant to be, there were three siblings. They had an even younger sister that she was born in 87, so she had 6-year difference with Picasso. But unfortunately, she died when she was only 7 years old of diphtheria. So unfortunately, Picasso lost the youngest sisters of the family, and Lola was the sister that he actually, draw many times because it's easy to use it as a model. And there's another anecdote in which Picasso, when he was little, that he was drawing very well. And his mother said that one of the first words he said, it was peace, peace, because lapis is actually a pencil. So he was drawing from a very early age, copying paintings that were in the living room, under the bed, by memory, and imitating his father, because his father was an art teacher and he was a kind of not so good painter of still lives and pigeons. That was the specialty of the father, pigeon painting.
So he was asking for a pencil as the first word he ever basically learned.
Yep.
Give me a pencil, I'm going to go ahead and draw and become one of the most influential artists of the 20th century.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Here's the second picture you chose.
Yeah. I chose this picture because I really like it. I think it gives some experience. I mean, I don't know, feeling of happiness of these youth years that everyone thinks about. Oh, you know, my youth, you know, funny times. And he's portrayed. Picasso is the guy that we see on the left-hand side, kind of clapping his hands. The one that, yes, exactly, the one that is playing the flute is a very good friend that he met at the art school of Barcelona. He attended the art school called La Llotja in Barcelona, and he was very young. He was 5 years younger than the normal students there. He started going there at 13. And this is Manuel Pallares, and the guy that we see with a darker suit and the hat is a very good friend of his, Carlos Casagemas, that we are going to talk about later on about him. So, yes, sorry.
No, go.
So I chose this picture because they are on the top of one of their studios. Picasso shared the studio with both of them in different times. He had 6 studios in Barcelona. And they were working in the morning and going out at night and discovering the nightlife of Barcelona.
So here was my question. I mean, when you see these beautiful still black and white photos of artists maybe sitting at a cafe in Paris or something like that during similar years, they generally look very serious, as they are the intellectuals, and they don't look in such fun environment, laughing and playing the flute and on top of a rooftop, hit by the sun. You know, there's a lot of vibrancy in this picture. How was Picasso? Was he a vibrant solar man, or was he more of an introverted artist?
No, not at all. He was a joker. He had the typical Andalusian character that is making jokes out of everything, a little dirty sometimes. And he was a very outgoing, kind of loud person, and very social. So he loved gatherings of people, making jokes. He was a very lively person, yes.
Well, you can definitely see that from the picture you chose.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, repetition. So here you have this one.
Yes, I chose the portraits he made when he was very young in it. He was only 15 years old. We have to think that this is the one that we see of his father is a watercolor, and the one of his mother is a pastel, and they're very good, I think, psychological portraits. We have to think that Picasso was trained not only by his father, but the art school in a very academic way. And we can see that, you know, we can see that this is a very naturalistic style. You know, he's training himself with the models that he has at hand, his family members, his father, his mother. And one of the things that Picasso once told a friend in Paris, Brassailles, who was a photographer and artist, he said, every time I paint a male figure, I think about my father. And this portrait I chose because precisely it is a very good portrait of Pablo Ruiz, who was his father, and also an artist and an art teacher, yeah.
So this is done in 1896, which means he is only 15 years old. He's still a student. You would never guess that he's going to go the direction he went all the way into the 1960s. So this is spectacular. This is just regular academic learning how to paint for even somebody who's going to, some critics or some people may not appreciate his art and be like, this doesn't look like art. So it's quite interesting. It's like my sister who's a contemporary dancer. She says, you can't be a contemporary dancer if you haven't studied the classicals yet. If you don't know how to do a classic dance.
Absolutely, you are totally right. And Picasso is a great example for that. You know, it's like, I mastered it. He used to say, I used to draw like Raphael, but it took me my whole life to draw like a child. You know, so that's this is a good example of that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and then this.
Oh yes, we're getting serious here. I chose this painting because Picasso won a prize for this painting, and this is the prize. It was an honorary prize of the Royal Academy of Painting in Madrid, La Academia de San Fernando. This is a painting he made a year after the two portraits, 1897, so he was 16 years old. And the male mother, I mean, the title is Science and Charity. And it's very interesting how this painting used to be in fashion at the end of the 19th century for this new bourgeoisie. It was a way to reflect this kind of social realism. They used to call them hospital paintings. The father figure is the doctor who's checking out science, he's symbolizing science and helping the sick. And then the sick person was a lady, a beggar of the street, that her baby was the one that the nun is actually holding. The nun is the support to this, is the charity. So science and charity helping someone to go through life, right? And it's a very academic painting as well. We see the composition, the characters, the sobriety and the naturalism of the painting. But through this painting, it was thanks to this painting that he actually managed to get into the Royal Academy of Painting in Madrid, the San Francisco Academy, yeah.
Okay, so this is the opening doors to a higher level education in art making. And where is this painting currently stored? Where can we admire this painting?
This is at the Picasso Museum in Barcelona. Yes, this is one of the highlights that you can see there, yeah.
Okay, here's your next picture.
Yeah. This is a painting that we can see is totally the opposite of what we've seen before, and it was only made a year after. What happened there? What happened? Well, it reminds me a lot, those that are familiar with Van Gogh's painting, the haystacks of Van Gogh, the yellows, the brush strokes. Well, what happened was that while Picasso spent 8 months at the Royal Academy in Madrid of San Fernando, he got the scarlet fever. He was very sick and he decided to quit the school. And in order to recover himself, he went to the farmhouse that is in Horta de San Juan. It's 200 kilometers south from Barcelona in Tarragona. And in the countryside, he actually looked outside. He's like the impressionist. And he started this kind of more impressionist style, very, far away from the academic drawings and painting we've seen. And he started experimenting, and he decided to quit the academic painting then. So it was like the beginning of of his career somehow, yeah.
But he is so far from Impressionism, and since geographically speaking, had he seen any of it? Had he been able to admire? And where did he, what kind of sources would he have had back in the day?
Yeah, you have to think that at the end of the 19th century, many Catalan artists of the Bohemia of the city of Barcelona already did trips to Paris. And they're the ones coming with these new styles that they were taking place in Paris. It was the art capital of the world back then. And it was within these new circles of Bohemian artists that the young Picasso fed with ideas, right? And his first trip to Paris was in 1900, so 2 years after this painting. But the ideas of the, let's say, older generation, the more Bohemian, modernist painters, were already there. So
had already reached Madrid and then subsequently Barcelona. And obviously we see the use of the color, the yellows and the reds and a little bit of the greens, just like they were experimenting back in the day, a set of 3.5 colors spread through the technique. So he's very much there. Now here's another, okay, all right, Helena, you took 4 pictures in one. You're not allowed.
No, I did that because it links very well to what you just mentioned before.
I know.
Where those ideas were coming from. Okay, let's start. The 2 pictures that we see on the upper side. One is the exterior of a building that is called Casa Martí, who was built by one of the famous modernist architects of Barcelona, Josep Puig i Cadafalch, in a neo-Gothic style. We can see it's using brick, but they're using the shapes of neo-Gothic architecture. The one of the inside is the indoors of Casa Martí that was named Els Quatre Gats, the 4 cats. The reason why is because this cabaret, was actually inaugurated in 1897 in an homage to a famous cafe, Bohemian cafe, that closed down that same year in Paris. That it was called Le Chat Noir. So it was an homage to this Bohemian cafe in Paris, but in Barcelona. And what happened there is that we see the gentleman, the bearded gentleman with the hats. That was the place where people like Gaudí, the young Picasso, and the older generation of modernist painters who already had been to Paris were hanging out and talking and doing even Chinese shadow shows, and discussing all these intellectual subjects of the time. The last picture, the one that is actually a drawing by Picasso, because Picasso was actually even hired to draw the menu of this place, the Bohemian, let's say, VIP place to hang out in the time, during that time. And this is the place where he actually held his first solo show of charcoal portraits of his friends. So there you go.
Now, just out of curiosity, since now we're talking about Picasso Barcelona and everything that regards it, this is the picture of the cafe now.
Yeah, it's interesting because just like Les Chats Noirs in Paris, who opened from 1881 to 1897, this cafe also was not open for a long time. It closed down in 1904, sorry, and they just had too many deaths, and it was reopened in 1970. So nowadays you can visit this cafe, but it had been closed down for a long time.
Is it actually a cafe?
Yes, you can go. Perfect. Yeah, you can go have lunch.
So the bikers that I see here on the wall are the same exact bikers that are here on this wall. Have never changed.
Yes, exactly.
So for people who want to go in through the steps, vicariously live Picasso's life in Barcelona, we suggest going to this cafe.
Absolutely, yes, it's beautiful, and it really, you do travel in time when you're there. Yeah.
How's the food?
The food is nice. Could be better. Yeah. But it's fine. It's fine.
Just a little quick technical note for the people that are watching the live version or the recorded version of this Live Talk. I tend to keep a little space for you to move us with your cursor on the area where there isn't a picture. So you can actually move us in order for you to see the entire visual of the pictures that Helena so graciously chose for us. So go ahead, Helena.
Well, I chose these two pictures because now we see how this Parisian influence is really getting into Picasso's blood. First trip to Paris with his friends Casagemas, the one with the darker suit on the picture we saw before. They went to Paris. Why? They went to Paris because Last Moments was a painting by Picasso, who also depicted a priest with a dying person in bed. Was chosen for the 1900 Universal Exhibition in Paris. So there they hang out, they stay at the place of Isidre Nunell, who was another Catalan artist living already in Paris. And then we can see the influence of the Pointillists, the French Impressionists, and especially Toulouse-Lautrec. Not only in the sense of style, we can see it on the end number. It looks like, to me, it looks totally like a Toulouse-Lautrec, the cabaret life, the nightlife with this pastel. And the other one is like a Pointillist. It's just, again, this lady of the night, maybe an absinthe drinker. And it's total, I mean, it's someone, if you don't know that Picasso made these paintings, you perhaps think is another of the Impressionist artists.
Yeah. So clearly influenced quite a bit by his visits.
Yeah. Here. Now we get into the tragic part of the talk, not so joyous. Why? Because the lady in the middle, Germaine, she used to be an artist model. So she used to pose for different artists in Paris. Picasso and his friend Casagemas went back to Paris after that first visit. And Casagemas, who was a poet and an artist himself, the son of a kind of upper middle class family. His sister was a pianist composer. His father was a vice consul of the United States in Barcelona. So they came for a kind of, upper middle class background. He was totally in love with Germaine. He was impotent, and the love affair didn't really kind of went through, but he was obsessed with Germaine. So Picasso said, okay, come with me, I take you to Malaga, we spend the summer there. But Picasso realized that Casagemas was so obsessed with Germain, he was actually drinking a lot of absinthe, he was taking morphine, and he in Casagemas said, I'm leaving you here, I'm going back to Paris. Then Picasso left for Madrid, he had to work for a journal, making some illustrations, and while Casagemas was on his own in Paris, he held a dinner with some of his friends. He actually invited Germain, and after reading a poem, he actually took a gun, he shot Germain, but she actually hid under the table, so she didn't die. And then he shot himself on the temple, and he killed himself. So after this event took place, Picasso was very much affected by that. Perhaps he was feeling guilty of not being present enough in the life of Casagemas. We can see the portrait he made of him is kind of dark. We have a very different feel from Joy. And the one of the death of Casagemas, that it looks like a Gauguin or again, you know, a Van Gogh. He shows him with a shot on his head. And from then on, he started with his blue period. It was the event that really, let's say, placed Picasso into a more personal style, the first personal style he really had after what we've seen before. And he, like the picture of the madman, he used very much blues and grays and subjects of poverty, the people that are on the margins of society. So it was the beginning of something. Yeah.
So I have two questions about this. Why do you think he chose blues and grays from this event onward, or at least for the blue period? So what was behind the choice of these two grades of colors? And also, and this is a complete hypothetical answer, of course, I don't expect any other than a hypothesis. What would have happened to Picasso if this hadn't happened?
Well, that's I answered the first question. I think he chose the blues and the grays because they are colors that we normally relate to melancholy. I mean, the opposite of the yellows of the haystack, you know, the light of the outside. These are colors, the dark colors, the cold colors that we normally associate with the blues, with the feeling of bluesy, right? So they were.
Like you mean blues, the genre?
Yes,
the music. Yeah,
well, not blues. Blues is feeling blue, you know, is feeling depressed.
Well, that's music too.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have to think that after this period, he started the pink period, who was more joyful, and the figures of harlequins, the circus people appeared, whereas the subject matter, not only the color scheme on this part, was the poor, the marginalized, and he himself was very actually hungry. He was not yet that successful at that time. Second question, what happened if it didn't happen to Picasso? I think he would have continued being a very successful artist because he had the drive. He was in Paris, and I think he would have been successful anyhow, with a different style maybe, but yeah, no doubt.
Okay. Here you go. Some blues.
Yeah, more blue, yeah.
Playing some blues right here.
This is just to end the Barcelona period because he did 3 different trips to Paris, 4 different trips to Paris since he arrived in Barcelona in 1895 until he departed for good to Paris in 1904. So these are the, let's say, last paintings he created in Barcelona, yet with the subject matter. The old guitarist was a blind guy. He actually a musician, a street musician. We can see how, you know, his posture is the opposite of someone, you know, very sure of himself, suffering, you know, with his guitar, actually taking quite a lot of place. So it's like the only means of survival. And then the last one, who is actually part of the Cleveland Museum of Art in the United States, in Ohio. This is a painting that he titled The Life, and it's considered the masterwork of this blue period. And there are very interesting facts about this painting. First, we see this couple. It's like the carnal, let's say, the symbol of the carnal love, or the love of the earth, and then the symbol of the mother and the child. Let's say the love for a more idealized, of the pure love of the mother and child, like Madonna, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these background figures. They're like paintings in an artist's studio, exactly. And then we see as if the figure of the Madonna in child has grown up into despair. And then, it's like the end of life. So we can see this as two things, the combination of a cycle of life and kind of an allegory of the more terrain, let's say carnal love, and the more idealized version of love. But the most interesting thing about this painting is that the face of the male character used to be Pablo Picasso, but after Casagemas shot himself, he decided to change the face of the male character and place the face of his friend Casagemas. Interesting fact, what happened to Germain? 3 months later, 3 months after Casagemas shot himself, he was going out with Pablo Picasso. There you go. The beginning of a womanizer.
Now, when you're telling us where these paintings are, we also remind ourselves that Picasso was also a sculptor. How many are, and they're spread across the globe, how many, is there a number of pieces recorded that Picasso produced in his lifetime?
If I'm not wrong, I'm not going to say the right figures, but I know he died in 1973. I know he left about 1,000, nearly 2,000 paintings, about 3,000 plus ceramic works, and about 30,000 lithographs. We have to think that Picasso was also a very good graphic artist. So he was extremely prolific. He was...
Would you, and this is completely out there, okay? But not before this painting right here, at least in my very limited experience in art history, there isn't much of, there isn't much experimentation in artists where they try and lose the sense of space and time and putting an allegory rather than a life, like for example, the old guitarist, but rather a metaphor into a drawing, into a painting. Would you say this is, and then we see a lot of that obviously later, would you say this is the beginning of that, or is there proof of it even before? Would you say Picasso would be the starter of this concept?
Not really. You know why? Because we have Manet, for example, the famous painting of Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe. That is an allegory. That is a very mysterious painting as well. And I would say that Manet was, again, one of the influences of Picasso, just like Gauguin, Van Gogh. And I would say that he's in that kind of vein. I don't think he was a pioneer. I think the post-impressionist, especially Manet, were there already. He's just following the same path, though. Totally following the same path.
Thank you so much, everybody who's attended. Thank you so much for your generosity and sharing this beautiful topic with us tonight, Helena. It's 8 o'clock. In an hour, you're going to have dinner, Spanish time. So you were drinking some wine already, which is cool.
I am. Oui.
Cheers. I'll leave it up to you to wrap it up and say buenas tardes.
Well, thanks to everyone. It was a pleasure. So yeah, I hope I can do it again.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Buenas tardes. Good evening. Ciao.